Now, holy sanctuary, next topic. And know in every generation there is a shepherd, a Moses, for Moses was the faithful shepherd. And this shepherd makes a sanctuary. And know, the little children receive the undefiled breath of their mouths from this sanctuary. When a child begins to read and enters the study of Torah, he is first taught the verse, and he called to Moses. All the tzaddikim of the generation, each and every one of them play the role of this shepherd, and for each of them is a Moses. Each in his own way makes a sanctuary, the sanctuary from which the children receive the breath of their mouths. All right. Each receives the breath of the mouth from him, each child in accordance with his nature. All right, that's reviewing everything, a lot of things we talked about already. What's new there is the idea of little children, but that's pretty obvious. And the mouths of the children, we already talked about the mouth as a vibrator. So again, apply that right away. That each child somehow is dealing with his own dialectic. All right, his own opposites, mama, papa.
When Israel was 5 years old, his father, Eleazar, was dying. On the day of his death, he said to the boy, "My child, know that the enemy will always be with you. He will be in the shadows of your dreams and in your living flesh, for he is the other part of yourself. There will be times when, like a lightning stroke, you will pierce into his father's hiding place, and he will fade before you like a fleeing cloud. And there will be times when he will surround you with walls of darkness, and you will stand alone as upon a raft in the midst of the sea of night. But remember always that your soul is secure to you, for your soul is entire, and he cannot come into it. Your soul is a part of God. Do not be afraid of man, and do not fear the enemy, for the highest power is in you." After the death of Rabbi Eleazar, the Jews of the village cared for his child. Israel was sent to the cheder, but soon he found he could not bear to remain within the schoolroom. He would glide through the door and go into the woods. There he would remain all day long, walking under the trees, sitting among the flowers, or by the running river, absorbed with joy. He lived on berries and fruit. He talked with the birds. He played with the untamed beasts, and sometimes he stood very still and listened. So Israel grew. When he was 10 years old, he came out of the woods to the village of Hordenka and became a helper to the schoolmaster there. It was Israel's duty to go from one house to the other early every morning to wake the children and lead them to the cheder. Israel would lead the children into the field. He would sing, and they would also sing with him. They would go a long way through the field and through the woods, going in a great circle until they came to the schoolhouse. They would arrive carrying green branches in their hands with flowers woven in their hair. Often they sang, "Praised be his holy name, Amen," for Israel knew no other song. In the evening he led them home. Soon the Jews of Hordenka began to feel that the children were changed. They were like no other Jewish children. Often they sang. The voices of the singing children rose like arrows upward and broke against the heavy clouds of evil that the enemy had spread over the earth. Each day the voices beat against the clouds until they pierced into them. Soon a crack was made, and the voices reached the blue sky and flew toward heaven. Then the exiled and wandering spirit called the Shekhinah, hearing the singing of the children, raised her head in the hope that the time had come when she might flow back into her Creator and again be one with Him. But Satan rose in furious hate and strode straight into heaven. "Someone there below is interfering with my work," he cried. Elijah said, "He's only a band of children singing." "Let me strive against the children," Satan demanded of God. And God nodded his head, saying, "Strive." Then Satan went down to the earth. He went to the wood where the boy Israel had lived. There the enemy crept over the ground, peering at every insect, and crawling into the bosom of every flower. Of insect and blossom he asked, "Will you carry my poison into the heart of the child Israel?" But no living thing would turn against the child. But But in that wood lived an aged charcoal burner who had been born without a human soul. His body lived and ate and slept, but he did not know what was right and what was wrong. He was afraid of humans and therefore hid himself in the forest. Some people thought he was a sorcerer and they feared him. It was true that often at night a demonic power would creep into the flesh of the old charcoal burner. Then he would feel himself becoming an animal. He would crouch and sink into his four paws. His limbs would become covered with fur. Then he would be a werewolf and prowl under the trees. Those who went late into the wood were often frightened by the werewolf's groans. But none had felt his teeth. The charcoal burner's simple heart shrank under the terrible urge that made him into a werewolf. When he howled his pain and shame, he would creep under a bush and lie there panting, unable to flee himself, until at last he slept. And so the enemy found him sleeping. Satan reached his hand into the breast of the sleeping creature and took his heart out from his body. That heart Satan buried in the earth, and within the breast of the human werewolf he placed his own heart that was the innermost kernel of darkness. When Israel came at dawn with his singing children towards the forest, the werewolf broke from the bush and rushed with snorting nostrils and teeth that flashed like knives towards the flock of children. The children screamed in fright. Some fell insensible, and some ran into the forest, some into the field, some clung to each other and cried, and some were taken with fever. Then the beast came toward Israel. The boy saw the beast becoming larger. He saw the beast grow until his back was a scowling cloud arched between the heavens, and his paws clutched the whole earth. And the bloody vapor that issued from his mouth covered the rising sun. But the boy was not afraid. He walked straight forward, going into the very body of the werewolf, and nothing stopped his steps. He came to the glowing heart of the beast. Round and shining like a black mirror it lay before him. All of the knowledge and all of the desire of the world were drawn into its gloomy depths. And all of the evil and all of the untruth in the world were reflected outward from its surface, reflected with such a black and universal brilliance of hatred that only his universal love of God saved the boy from being blinded and drawn into the mirror to become a part of its evil. That black heart was given into his hand. He closed his fingers tightly over it. He held it fast. Then he felt it palpitating within his hand, shivering and jerking like a fish out of water. He felt the blood drop from it, and he knew the immeasurable pain that was in that heart, pain that began before time began, and would endure forever. Then he took pity and gave freedom to the heart. He placed it upon the earth, and the earth opened and swallowed the black heart into itself. Of the day, townsfolk found the charcoal burner lying dead under the bushes in the woods. A smile of simple innocence was on his face. His eyes were closed. Then they did not understand why they had ever feared him, saying he became a werewolf at night in the woods. For in death, he was like a child.